What's up, everybody? Chris with Classic Home Concepts back for episode number 4 of the podcast. Kenzie has a sick little kid at home today, so we brought on one of my best friends for a lot of years, Joe Everest, to talk about his social media experience. And if you watch his videos, you probably recognize this studio. He was gracious enough to let us use it. But yeah, say hi, Joe. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, you bet. I apologize for those watching out there because I'm not as good looking as Kenzie and not as nice as Kenzie maybe, and I apologize for that. But no, I appreciate you having me on, Chris. So I do a couple things. I own Ozark Fence Company here in Springfield.
Mm-hmm.
I also have a YouTube channel. It's called Joe Everest, the Fence Expert. So do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, you've been around the fence game for a couple years now, huh?
Yeah, since I was a kid. So that's always a moving target. You know, everyone likes to talk about how long they've been in the industry and that sort of thing. It's a moving target. So it was probably 6th grade, maybe 7th grade, summer of first day of summer. And I still remember this clearly. I had plans with all my buddies. We were going to get on our bicycles and we were just going to ride. That's what we were going to go up to the gas station. We're going to go roll around, the cemetery is right there. So we could race our bikes through the cemetery and all that. Anyway, we had plans.
Okay.
Well, before the sun even came up, I get woken up. I was like, that's kind of weird because I was going to sleep in, but okay. It's my dad. He says, all right, get up. Time to go work. No, it's not. No, it's I've got plans with my buddies today. We're going to go ride bikes. He's like, nope, you're coming to work. But guess what? Your buddies will still be here when you get back, and you can go ride bikes this evening. Well, needless to say, that did not go over well. Did not appreciate that as much as I did.
Wasn't how
today.
you wanted to spend your day, huh?
No. So, things kind of started off with, me picking up trash out of the lot and cleaning bathrooms and generally kind of being in the way more than anything. But yeah, just kind of being around. From there went to fabrication. So this is before we had a welder,
Okay.
So we were cutting pipe and fitting pipe into gates and panels and things like that. So yeah, I got the nuts and bolts together and got them ready for the guys. And so when they were building them, they were ready. And anyway, and just kind of slowly but surely progressed up through the business. In high school, I started doing installs more than anything. During the summers, I'd go on either on the set crew or finish crew. And then after high school, started doing some sales, came in the office a little bit.
Okay.
And then, rest is history. So I bought the business from my dad January 1st of 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And, haven't looked back. Things have been moving at a pretty brisk pace ever since.
Very cool. So 5 years.
Yeah. In 5 years, we've gone from, we were in, of course, the facility we were in.
I'm a little familiar.
About 1,200 square foot.
Yep.
Between office and shop. January of this year, we bought a new facility where we've got roughly 12,000 square foot.
So you 10x'd.
Yeah, we grew a little bit. But what was nice is, so we were renting a space for our video.
Uh-huh.
So after I bought the business, one of the areas that I really wanted to grow was our marketing.
Right.
You can do marketing one of two ways. You can pay someone a lot of money to do your marketing for you.
Uh-huh.
That wasn't an option. Or you can try to figure out marketing for yourself. And that's kind of what we did. So,
I have a third option.
Oh, okay.
You can wait 5 years for one of your best friends to do all this.
Oh, yeah.
And then you just say, hey, Joe, show me how to do it.
Oh, by the way. Yeah.
That's the option we picked.
That's a good option. I'm going to try to figure out that option.
Okay.
I don't know if that option's available to me, but if it's available, you take it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, so talking about how we got started in social media, before we rented a studio, it actually started in my living room. So I had a backdrop. I had a kind of a cheesy camera.
Sure.
And my wife would have to take the kids to the playground so that things were quiet in the house so I could do a couple videos. And then eventually she would start texting me. She's like, you better wrap up. Are you done yet? No, not yet. Are you done yet? No, not yet. You'd better be done because we're coming home. So Okay, yes, ma'am. Understood. But yeah, so my living room turned into a studio. I had lights that popped up and a background and audio stuff, and essentially kind of the studio, a more basic version, but a studio that we're sitting in right now popped up in my living room about once a week or so.
Do what you got to do.
That's right. That's right. You do what you can with what you have.
Yep.
So from there, eventually my wife got tired of taking the kids to the playground. So she said, "You've got to take this somewhere else. Like, I don't care where you take it. It's got to go." So we ended up renting a studio space downtown. It was actually a shared office space, kind of like a local version of WeWork more than anything. Yeah. And we just outfitted it with the same equipment I had there at the house and started making video. And then slowly but surely upgraded lights and audio and video and all that good stuff.
So how long you been doing social media now?
Well, so that's a moving target. I will credit my dad with this. So when my dad owned the business, when I was just working for my dad, I had asked him, so this is probably, 2012, 2013. Facebook was here, but Facebook for small business wasn't as common, right?
Okay.
You saw some bigger brands playing around, but to my dad's credit, I asked my dad, I said, "Hey, could I have an ad budget? I want a marketing budget because I want to play on Facebook. I want to learn. I want to just figure this stuff out." Because I knew that we couldn't afford to be on television. We couldn't afford to be on radio. I mean, those are expensive investments.
Right.
But I had a camera and we could do some video, and I had a phone that had a camera on it.
Right.
So we could do some social media stuff. So I've been doing, messing around in social media probably since 2012, 2013.
Okay.
The videos, the YouTube videos, the dedicated stuff, that probably started in 2016, thereabouts.
What was your inspiration?
They Ask You Answer by Marcus Sheridan.
Yeah, we talked about that book a couple weeks ago.
That's right.
That's kind of where I got my start.
I tell you what. So one of the things I do is I also go and talk at training events with fencing contractors, standing contractors, and that is where I start and end every talk. Is go by the book. They Ask, You Answer by Marcus Sheridan. That is your foundational knowledge for what you should be doing in marketing.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that I really like about that book is it kind of gets you over your fears. Talk about all the things. I'm sure anyone watching, you've called a contractor before and you say, "Hey, how much does it cost to build me a deck?" Well, we got to come out and look. And we got to see because every deck is different.
Well, it depends.
Right.
And that's the thing so that was one of the first videos I did, Chris, was how much does a fence cost? Well, the answer is it depends.
Obviously.
But what does it depend on? No one talks about how do I figure out a price.
Right.
They just say it depends because they want to come out and they want to, give you the presentation and they want, because if they can talk to a customer, they can sell a customer.
You get to see their expertise.
That's right. That's right. So they don't want to talk on the phone. They don't want to talk about price. They don't want to talk about what can go into the price or anything. The problem is, here's the thing is, and they talk about this in the book, but the thing is the customer knows that the answer. They do. So when you say, "Ooh, can't really talk about that. I got to come out." Okay, now they know they're in for a sales pitch. They know that they're going to get a presentation. What can I do to get you in a whatever it is today?
You sound like you don't like to be sold.
I hate being sold.
Me too.
I hate being sold. I love getting all the information, making an informed decision.
Yep.
That's with the help of a professional.
Sure.
Right. Bob Vila said it when I was a kid. If you're not a professional, hire a professional.
Yep.
Right. So, but I want the information. I know my situation. I know what my needs are. I'm willing to take, suggestions, but I want to make the decision.
So you'd say you'd rather have someone educate you than sell you.
Bingo. That's it. Education is huge. It is. I don't care what industry we're talking about. I don't care what part of the industry, whatever. Education. Education is absolutely important. So, but yeah, that's it. Is starting with Marcus Sheridan's They Ask You Answer, because he does a great job of breaking it down into bite-sized pieces.
Absolutely.
Right? Because this can be terrifying. Like, this is not normal. To sit in a studio under lights with a microphone in your face talking to a camera.
Well, how long did you try and get me to do it before I actually started?
It's been years.
Yeah.
It's been years. Like, this doesn't feel normal. And I understand that. But when you break it down into bite-sized pieces, it just gets easy.
Well,
or easier.
And that's
what
easy. When Kenzie and I talked, she was super nervous at the beginning.
Of course.
And even if you go back and watch the first episode, she'll pick on herself. She's like, I just stared at the screen. What do I do the whole time?
Yeah.
Well, you never get comfortable if you don't do it.
It's repetition.
Yeah.
You cannot run a marathon tomorrow.
Nope.
Maybe you can. I don't want to speak for you.
No, I can't.
But I cannot. Now, if you tell me, Joe, for some reason, you are very motivated to run a marathon and you're running one next year. Cool.
We can train for that.
Let's get a plan together. So let's start with a training program. Let's start getting, the whole process, right? So if you have a roadmap, you know where you're going, you know when about you want to get there. Now all of a sudden it's achievable. Now it's smaller incremental steps.
Right.
And they ask you answer. What it does best is gives you the first 10 talking points. Right. So that's the big thing is, well, what in the world would I sit here and talk about? I got some ideas.
Yeah.
Well, Mark Sheridan has some ideas.
Absolutely.
And it's answering the most common questions.
The 80%.
That's right. That's right. If I was going to boil the whole book down, it's you start with the top 10 questions that you're tired of answering. What 10 questions do you get every day, every other day that you are just tired of answering?
Yeah.
How much does it cost? What's your service area?
Yep.
How long does it take to do it? Right. I mean,
what's your payment terms?
Payment terms. Absolutely. Everyone knows the questions they get all the time. And if they're answering them all the time, it's probably a pretty good question to answer.
Right.
And the great thing is by sitting down, creating a video that says, how much does a fence cost? Well, it depends. But what does it depend on? It depends on length. It depends on material. Now, once that video goes out and lives on the internet, YouTube or elsewhere, well, now that question can get answered at 3:30 in the morning. Someone can be searching. And because here's the thing about YouTube, YouTube's owned by Google. So YouTube and Google are the top 2 search engines in the world.
Right.
So someone says, what does a fence cost? Now they get a video that says, well, it's going to depend, but here's what it depends on. Or what's your service area, or what are your payment terms, or whatever the questions you get all the time. Because then, I mean, you can do so much with that information moving forward. You can make blog posts. You can embed it on your website. Frequently asked questions. I love watching video. I hate sitting and reading a frequently asked questions, portion of the website.
Absolutely. But you can take that exact thing and make 10 questions on a video or 10 videos.
45-second video.
Yeah.
What are your payment terms? The payment terms are, we need half down to schedule the project, balance at completion when you load the fence. That's Perfect. The answer.
Yeah.
But that has more of an impact than just typing that out.
Absolutely.
Because you almost get an introduction to me if I'm the one doing that video before you and I ever meet.
Well, so that was going to be my next question is, does that help build trust when people hear you talk and they see you be the face of the company all the time? Does that build trust more than just reading a blog post again?
1,000,000%. So I'll tell a story. I tell this story every time. So for a long time, I was the face of Ozark Fence. Since then, my sister has kind of taken over control, but
she's the CEO, right?
She's a CXO actually. So is Chief Experience Officer. And kids nowadays should spell it with an X. It's CXO.
Okay.
So thank you for that, though. I appreciate you continuing to further that misinformation.
Anything I can do to help Sarah.
Regardless. So there for a while, I was the face of the business.
Okay.
I was doing a lot of videos. The Marcus Sheridan videos. How much does it cost? What's your service area? On and on and on. So I went and knocked on this lady's door. She opens the door and she says, well, you're the guy from Facebook. We're doing pretty much, this is pre us being on YouTube, that we were on Facebook almost exclusively.
Okay.
And I said, and this wasn't the first time I heard it. So I had like a little skit, right? So I said, well, of course, I said, I'm not going to pay somebody to do our social media on video. And if I did, it wouldn't look like me. We had a good laugh about it. Right? And so then we go in the backyard and we're measuring. And I said, this customer, we do things a little bit differently. We actually don't use wood posts anymore. We use steel posts because they last longer, they're stronger, and that sort of thing. She goes, that I watched that video. Why I should want steel posts? Because they've got a lifetime warranty. And she starts repeating back to me the content in that video.
You got to love that.
Before I knocked on her door, Chris, she knew who was coming and she knew what I was going to be there to talk about. Really, at that point, my job was to provide a price and then talk about payment options, that sort of thing. There was no education necessary as to the materials I was offering, as to who I was, who the company was. She watched all that on her own time. And so, by the time I knocked on the door, she already felt comfortable with me. She already trusted me. I never met her, until that day.
Right.
But
she felt like she knew you already.
100%. 100%.
That's powerful.
I do that all the time. When I'm watching videos, I watch YouTube a lot. And so when I'm watching these videos, like I feel like I have an emotional connection with these people who I've never met before in my life.
Right.
Two of them don't even live in the United States. But I feel like I know them because I watch their content every week. And I learn, I feel like I experience their life with them because I just watch their content each and every week. Never met them before in my life. So that is possible, is what I'm saying. And it's common for people to start forming emotional relationships with you before they even meet you, just based on you seem like a good guy on video.
Right. That's awesome. That's super exciting. That's why we're doing this. Hopefully that works for me too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Chris, that's the whole point, is that the reason you're doing this is so that you can meet someone who's interested in something that you have to offer in the future. Right?
Yeah.
So, ideally someone would watch your content for the next year, not needing you, not needing anything you have to offer. But one day window leaks or whatever. And they say, you know what? We got to call Chris. I've watched enough of his videos to where I know exactly how the process is going to go. And like, I like watching him every week, him and Kenzie, or sometimes that weird guy in orange that comes on, but him and Kenzie just sit and talk about whatever. They talk about the business. They talk about whatever it is, that you're talking about at that particular time, but they feel like they already have an emotional connection.
Yeah, absolutely.
So video is an incredible tool that you can use, and a fraction of people out there use it, and they're absolutely missing out.
Why do you think so few people do it?
It feels weird. It really does. And it seems like a monumental task, right? It's huge. So, if someone were to walk in here in the studio, they'd see the lights, they see the audio, they see the camera, they'd see just all this stuff. And I've seen it happen. The eyes glaze over. Like, oh, I could never do all of this. The thing is, this didn't happen in a day. Right. This was a process. I started off with less technology than my cell phone. I started off with kind of a janky camera and some compact fluorescent lighting, but I got started. And that's the huge thing.
Yeah.
I really think the reason people don't get started is they view it as such a monumental task.
It's scary.
Yeah.
And I've looked at your channel. Some of them have tens of thousands of views.
Yeah.
That's 10,000 people that could critique you.
Some of them have 400 views.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
That's probably worth talking about too, is that a lot of times it's going to be hit or miss.
Right.
The content that I love making that I think is going to do phenomenal has like 400 reviews.
Right.
The content where I'm like, we'll see. Jeremy, my video guy, or just we come up with an idea and I was like, we'll see. Just thinking things get 30,000 views.
Right.
Like, there's no rhyme or reason to it. But I don't know where I was going with that, but don't set out thinking you're going to set the world on fire.
Right.
Because you won't. I mean, you won't. It's unrealistic to think that you'll start creating content and within 6 months, the channel will be huge, that all this stuff will be happening.
So that's been the biggest thing that I've noticed is we're new. We just started doing this. We don't get a lot of traction, don't get a lot of views yet.
Of course.
But you know what I have gotten a lot of? People on the backside in real life. Man, you guys are killing it on social media.
Yeah.
I see you everywhere. You've been there all over it lately.
Yeah. And that is absolutely the goal. The goal is not to make your phone ring tomorrow.
Right.
Right. The goal is just to introduce yourself to people.
Mm-hmm.
Put yourself out there, be vulnerable, talk about subjects that other contractors in your realm don't or won't talk about, and just be available. And I think people recognize that hey, this is a scary thing,
right?
But you're doing it,
yeah,
right. So, I mean, I think that's real. That you don't plan on it taking off, to the moon in the first 6 months.
Sure,
because that's not the goal,
right?
That's absolutely not the goal. The goal is you want to introduce yourself to people, tell them what it is you do, how you do it, why they should trust you.
Mm-hmm.
And then if it resonates well, it'll do well. And the funny thing is, when you look at channels, the people that are legitimately good people, the people that care about what they do, that's why they're doing it. The channels do well. People absolutely recognize that and understand it. Now, there's also channels out there that you can tell that people are doing it for ulterior motives.
Right.
Right. It's not their passion. They could care less about it, but it's typically money. They're in it for monetization and all that. And the channels suffer for it. So I think that's probably a good takeaway here too, is that do it if you're passionate about it.
Right.
Right. If you're obviously passionate about your business, you want to share that passion with other people.
100%.
This is a great platform for that. But don't do it because you saw someone else do it and you think that you're going to tag along and try to do something as well.
Right.
Right. If your passion's not in it, don't even try.
Yeah. Well, I think that comes apparent pretty easily with small companies because, if you're buying a job from Classic Home Concepts, it's from me right now.
Right.
Right. And so I think you get to see, especially right now, that I'm the same person on camera as I am when I get to your doorstep.
100%.
Whereas
authentic.
Yeah. And you hear a lot about people that do this and they become this very serious person that's really professional. And guys, that's not me. If that's who you want to work with, I respect that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm probably not that person.
No, I mean, people want authentic experiences.
Yeah,
they really do. And to roll back to a previous point, like that is the point here, is that you're wanting to introduce yourself. Muted there for a second. Let's say hi to some folks real quick.
Okay.
The reason we're saying hi to him is because it's my little man.
Yeah.
What is up, Jackson?
Hey, buddy. How are you?
And my wife, Taylor. Hello, Taylor.
Hi, Tay.
Yeah. So I'm not sure how much of that was muted, but the goal is to be authentic.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you want to talk about next?
So what's funny is I was actually going to come sit up here and listen to your guys talk today because you were talking about sunrooms. And I've got a back porch. And the thing I don't like about the back porch is it gets wet when it rains and it's hot when it's hot. And it's just sometimes not a great place to sit.
Sure.
I like sitting on my porch.
Uh-huh.
So it's kind of my like quiet area, my like relaxing area sometimes. So let's talk about options, because I have a feeling there's not just one option on what we can do. Well, let's explain what it is. Okay. So it's a covered back porch, right? Yeah. Would you say that?
So again, it depends. A sunroom can be anything from, you could have a deck that we add a roof on and enclose it, or we could start from scratch and add the whole thing at once.
Yeah, no. So what I wanted to give some background on is my scenario.
Okay.
Just so if someone's watching at home, they can get a better idea.
So yours is the covered porch is part of the house, and then you basically got a concrete patio with like one step down from your back door. For that, again, couple options. You know, we could do more of the traditional treated wood style, where it's going to feel more like a screened-in porch, or it's going to feel like an addition.
Okay.
Or we could go to the other extreme and really make it feel like a room addition, where, you know, we could do hardwood floors or tile floors.
Okay.
We could do the same style of windows that match the rest of the house. We can have drywall inside. Nice. You know, we can really go all the way and make it feel like an extension of the home.
Okay.
It really just depends on, do you want that more? You're surrounded by nature.
Sure.
You know, you want the windows to be open a lot to let fresh air in, or do you want it to just be additional square footage for your home?
Gotcha. And I'm sure budget plays a role in that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it has to, right?
Well, you know, we talk about pricing a lot, and I've got windows that we can install for $600 or $700.
Sure.
And then I've got windows that we can sell you for $5,000, and a bunch of stuff in between. But
sure,
to give you an idea,
with different features involved and all that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That makes sense. So, what ideally for me is, it would be, I don't know about weatherproof, but it would keep the weather out.
Okay.
Right. So, ideally in the afternoon, on a Friday afternoon when it's blazing hot outside, it'd be cool in there.
Okay.
Right.
When you say it'd be cool in there, do you want it to be cooling itself, or do you want to leave the back door open to let air circulate?
Well, yeah. So probably cooling itself.
Okay.
Just because, I mean, here in the Midwest, it can get hot now. And a little bit of background information too is this back patio faces west. So it gets all the afternoon sun.
Yep.
When things are nice and warm. So ideally, I think it would need to be, and understand this is a fence guy, so this is me guessing a little bit here. But either part of the HVAC, the house's HVAC, or I've seen them. I don't know the term for it. I'm a fence guy, but the inside outside, where it's one room, right? So that I could control that room. So when I go out there, I can just kick on the AC.
Yeah. So that's called a mini split unit.
Gotcha. Okay.
And typically those are the way we go.
Okay.
Because a lot of times, if we were to just extend ductwork out from your regular house, your existing furnace and air conditioner is not sized appropriately to handle that extra square footage.
That makes sense.
And so, especially if it's in good working order, don't fix it if it's not broken.
Yeah. So
for, you know, $6,000 or $7,000 generally for a sunroom sized area, we can add an additional unit that, you know, again, you can play bells and whistles. It can be really basic and have just a control right on the unit itself.
Yeah.
That you go up and change what temperature you want it at. Or we can do some that are Bluetooth connected and Wi-Fi, and you can control them from your phone. And, you know, that actually ends up being one of our most popular options, is because people will set it up, you know, hey, we don't use this a lot during the day, but we like to sit out there after the kids go to bed.
Yeah.
So at 7:30, we're going to start bringing that down 10 degrees. So we're not paying for it to be cool all day long.
Well, that makes sense. Or if I'm getting ready to leave the office,
yeah,
I could kick it down so that it's you know, halfway comfortable when I get home.
Absolutely.
That sort of thing. Interesting. So, okay. So we've got a weather, like a weatherproof room. That's got AC in it. Now the mini system,
mini split. Yep.
Mini split system. Is it heat as well?
They have both options.
Okay.
So you can do just a cooled one if you typically use it in the summer. But most of the ones we do, they have both options.
That would make sense, because I'd like to sit out there in the wintertime too.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So we can match the flooring to my house.
Mhm.
Right. So
Yep.
what do we do though? Because it is a step down.
Well, it doesn't have to be.
Okay.
So we've got a couple options there too. Either we can have it be a step down if you want it to feel like you're entering a different part, or we just build a floor. And so we'll hang it from the house, and then
Okay.
we'll put in some supports to make sure it's sturdy. But it could really just be stepping over the door's sill to get out to a new room and be the same level.
Interesting. Yeah. So I would just open the door and it would be just stepping from one room to another, just right over that threshold. Okay. And then, of course, a door out to the backyard. Yeah. We do still need to get to the backyard here.
Right.
And then probably steps there then.
Yeah, depending. Sometimes we'll do steps that go straight down. Sometimes we'll take that space that was your patio and we'll add a deck or something like that.
Okay.
I know you like to grill, so it just really depends. Do you need a place to put your grill, or do you have somewhere that you're already going to take it?
That was going to be my next question, or one of my next questions is, can we extend, the existing concrete work out? Because I do like to grill.
Yeah.
And this being an enclosed area is not going to be conducive to grilling.
Right.
So maybe we extend that out with some concrete work to make a new outdoor kitchen area.
We absolutely can do that.
Now, I saw a video of you guys and a picture of your guys doing some outdoor kitchens.
Yes.
Holy bananas.
Uh-huh. Yeah, they're pretty cool.
It was unreal. I had to stop watching it, though, because I know me.
Uh-huh.
And I'm watching this. I'm like, oh, my goodness. Like, can you imagine all of the cooking I could do with this? And I had to stop because I know me.
Well, if Taylor's still watching, I'll come over and we'll talk about it.
Bye, Taylor. Go ahead and click off of this. But no, I mean, so really what that showed me is kind of how versatile you guys are.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you and I have known each other for forever.
Yeah,
and
20 years.
Yeah. And I feel like I've got a good sense for what you guys do. But for whatever reason, you had talked about outdoor kitchens, but I really feel like the term outdoor kitchen is too broad. Right, because outdoor kitchen could be, I guess when I think outdoor kitchen, it's a countertop, just a plain countertop, maybe with an inset grill, maybe a sink.
So
that sort of thing.
I'm actually glad. I didn't realize we were going to talk about outdoor kitchens, but in the vein of social media and creating stuff for people, we're actually working on a guide that has like 4 sets of outdoor kitchens. Because you're right. Sometimes we do one and it's 10 foot long and it's got either a big green egg or it's got a gas grill and it's got a sink and maybe it's got a mini fridge or one drawer system for storage.
Okay.
And we could do something like that depending on what you want for $8,000 or $10,000.
Okay.
Or we can do a big one and spend 50 or 60.
Yeah, I was blown away by, it was like marble countertop, wasn't it? Granite.
Yeah.
Granite.
So we actually got a really cool granite countertop for this one. It was a special order that Solid Surface has. So we use Solid Surface Designs and Billings. Okay. I always love to talk about the partners we really enjoy.
Yeah.
But they had this really cool one and then they leathered the top. So a lot of times for granite, it'll be smooth and shiny.
Yeah.
Well, that wears off. And this particular outdoor kitchen doesn't have a roof system on it.
Okay.
He's got a big pergola behind it. Eventually he's going to do a pool and some more fun stuff.
Nice.
So we didn't want a roof on that.
Yeah.
Well, so we talked to the fabricators and did a leathered treatment on it so that it already kind of looks weathered.
Interesting.
Well, now it's not going to lose that shininess because there's no shininess.
Yeah. It's kind of pre-aged almost.
Yeah. And then if part of normally if it's under weather too much, you can see part of the sealant come off in one area.
Okay.
Well, now that's all going to stay familiar and similar all the way through it. Uniform. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah. It's so crazy. Just the range of outdoor kitchens. Because like you had told me this was coming up and I watched social media, so I knew it was coming.
Right.
But I was not ready for that. That was an impressive project.
It's cool. And he is a really great chef. So like he sent pictures when we had first started this where he like roasted a whole alligator.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so like he utilizes it. I mean, when we finished it, I posted about us staying up late, and you want to talk about a team that really wants to kill it for you. Our countertop people stayed until midnight.
Good grief.
2 days before we had to be done, so that we had that day of punch out to make sure his whole party was ready. And they were back the next morning to finish up.
Jeez. Wow.
Yeah. So, but it's really cool. Like, and now it's done, and he used it and he fed 50 people the next day.
Oh, that's impressive. It really is. So we're not going to do that.
Okay.
I'm not I don't feed 50 people at a time.
Well, and so something, we talk about everything depends.
Yeah.
You already have a couple really nice Komodo Joes.
Yep. Yep.
So we don't necessarily have to, like, that expense is already taken care of.
Sure. Yeah. And that's the thing. So I would envision more of like a basic countertop. I would like a countertop out there, just because, the Komodo Joes have the folding side tables or whatever. They're never big enough. And sometimes they fall and it makes a mess.
Sure.
Counter space is something I'd kind of like to have, counter space is something I kind of like to have out there. Just to put a plate on, to put a whatever.
Sure.
That's kind of what I have envisioned out there. Maybe like a mini fridge. You had said mini fridge. That seems like kind of a neat idea. Keep some drinks out there, or condiments or whatever like that.
Yeah, especially like if you're having a bunch of kids over to play on the trampoline, or they're playing in a sprinkler or something like that. Well, they just run there to grab a water or a juice pack or whatever.
So they're not coming in the house.
Tracking, grass and water and everything else into the house.
Nice. Very cool. Okay. So we've got, now what is, I keep saying like a weatherproof room. Are we talking about a 4-season room? People use that term, and I don't know what that is.
It's all semantics, honestly. Okay. I guess to me, if like there would be stages of rooms, there would be a covered deck, which obviously is completely open.
Yep. Which is where I'm at now.
Right. And then you would step up to like a screened in porch.
Okay.
And we've done a couple of those. We just finished one. The one thing I will say is, unless you specifically are just screening it in to get rid of bugs or to minimize bugs, I would think really long and hard, and not why you're not going to an actual 3 or 4 season room.
Gotcha.
Because when you go to that, then you've got real windows that you can close it off.
Yeah.
Will insulate the wall. Most of the screen porches I've done in the past, we've ended up enclosing later.
That makes sense. I mean, because when you screen it in, really all you're doing is keeping out bugs, not keeping out weather, not keeping out the rain. And that, for me, that seems to be, if we're going to invest in this, that seems to be what I'd want, is more of a weatherproof room. I keep saying that, but that's the term I'm thinking about. It keeps the rain out, keeps the heat out, keeps the cold out, that sort of thing. Just makes it more usable.
Yeah. And then the next step would be from a 3-season to a 4-season. And really, to me, the difference there is a 3-season room doesn't have its own heating and air. So you might do a completely enclosed thing with real windows. And in Missouri, 80% of the time, 90% of the time, that's going to be good enough. Especially if you open your door to let the heat come in and out.
Have a fan on, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the day in February where it's 3 degrees outside, you're probably not going to want to be out there.
Well, or I mean, we're in August, September, when it's 98 degrees outside.
Absolutely.
With all the humidity.
Yep.
So that's kind of where my mind goes, is that, so I would have to think, and again, a fence guy thinking this, but the difference between 3-season without heating and air and 4-season with heating and air can't be crazy.
It's about 10 grand.
Okay. So it's within the realm of possibility, because we're already investing in this thing anyway. So what drives me crazy sometimes is seeing people, they get something so close and then they stop because they say, well, we'll do it later, or whatever the reason is. Drives me nuts because I know it rarely gets done. I don't want to say it will never get done, but a lot of times it doesn't.
Well, and so you end up with a better product if you do it all at once too.
Right.
Because especially with those mini split units, there's heating lines and cooling lines that go out to a unit that's outside.
Okay.
Well, if we're putting all those in the wall as we're building it, I can hide it completely.
Yeah.
And we've done some really cool creative stuff where like we mounted one on the brick and then we created a pipe over to a wall chase. So really it just looks like a bronze pipe that comes out of the heating unit and goes into the wall. But that's all you see of any of the lines. Whereas if we do that later, either we're tearing down half that wall, which is now you're paying for something twice.
Yep.
Or we're running it face mounted. And then you see that chase.
And it's going to look like it's an afterthought.
Yeah. So one of the things that a lot of people ask for, and price, I'm sure, is a big driving factor.
Sure.
Is they ask for those prefabricated kits that you see some of the bigger sunroom companies in the country use.
Yeah.
I don't do those at all.
Yeah.
Because one, they're not insulated well. So it's automatically going to be a 3-season room, and it might just be a 2-season room.
Okay.
2, there's no customization, and 3, they just look cheap.
Yeah.
And that's just not something that I want to build.
So what we're talking about probably is the ones, without naming names, of course, but the ones you'd see at like home shows, lawn and garden shows, that sort of thing. They wheel in, wheel out, that sort of thing.
Yeah, you order a bunch of prefabricated panels and put it all together, and it looks like someone came and stuck that on the side of your house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looks like an afterthought. So, well, let's talk about that too, is so I would assume that the siding would match closely my existing siding. I mean, I know my siding's been up for a couple years, so it's not going to be exact, but can we get close?
Absolutely. Yeah. And what you said is perfect. We're going to get as close as we can because especially around here is a big vinyl market.
Yeah.
But regardless, unless it's stone or brick all the way around, it's going to fade.
Sure.
So it's going to be a couple shades off. Now, the nice part is in a couple years, it'll probably fade to about the same color.
Blend in.
Yeah. But we usually tell people we can get within a shade or two.
Okay.
The goal is really to make it look like it was always there.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, especially in my particular instance, I don't think anyone's going to be really comparing the two anyway. So you know what I mean? I mean, I'll know it's there.
Right.
But
so that's probably the biggest thing I could tell any homeowner is remember that you're the only one who's going to see that one little thing.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Now we're going to do everything we can to not have those little things.
Right. Right.
But I promise no one is coming through and saying this siding over here is one shade different from over here.
Yeah. And no one's going to walk by and go, oh God, what happened there?
Right.
No one's going to notice that, you know, and if they're there in your yard anyway, looking at this, they know it's new anyway.
Right.
They know that you just got this done anyway. So we've got another comment here from someone you might know.
Hey,
well, I know also.
That's my wife.
Yeah. Leathered countertop all the way. I'm going to look this up because that is a very interesting idea.
It's super cool.
Well, it makes sense too that, you know, it doesn't look brand new.
Right.
Sometimes you want something that looks new. I get it. But a lot of times I don't want it to look brand new.
Right.
I don't want it to look like it just got done. So it sounds like this. I want to go back and look at pictures of it, but it sounds like this is kind of that scenario where it looks like it's been there for years.
Right. Well, and especially with an outdoor kitchen, we do that. And then we do, so like here, you have a smooth edge for your countertop.
Yep.
So they have a chipper that they use that basically just takes it and breaks it. And then they like take off the hard edges so that it's not catching your shirt or something.
Sure.
But then it looks kind of rough and I hate to use the word rustic, but in that vein, it's not super high polished.
Sure. It looks like it's been there for a while.
Yep.
Man, that's interesting. Leathered. Okay. Well, what do we call it?
Leathered. Yeah.
Yeah. Leathered countertops. All right. We're gonna have to look into this.
Yeah.
But all right. So we've talked about, and I understand, guys, I'm hijacking this, but I have questions about sunrooms. And it was the subject of today's.
Do you think there's other people out there that have the same questions?
Probably
a valid conversation to have.
So my roof's there. It is covered.
Yep.
Do we do anything with that? Or, I mean, it's pretty
roof?
much, yeah.
So you can. Yours right now has soffit material, so it's metal. And that really just becomes a style and budget thing.
Okay.
You know, we can take that down and make it drywall if you want it to feel like part of the house.
Okay.
We can sometimes we'll do like wood beadboard or a V groove or something.
Okay.
That might have a little bit different texture and style than just drywall.
Sure.
So again, we can do, or we could leave it. You know, if you're okay with that feel and you don't want it to feel like the rest of the inside of your house,
yeah,
you could really do either one.
Okay. And again, that's probably comes down to personal preference and budget.
Yeah. So one of the things that we do differently than what a lot of people do, all of these questions are questions every customer asks.
Sure.
So we'll give you a ballpark. I'm happy to give you, hey, I know your sunroom or your 4-season room, we're doing HVAC, the roof's already there. You know, we could spend somewhere between 20,000 and 50,000 if you want to.
Yeah.
If you're comfortable with that ballpark, or you're comfortable entrusting with me, hey, I really want to be closer to 20, I can guide you to what 20 looks like.
Okay.
But what we do is we actually go to a pre-construction design phase.
Yeah.
And we'll create renderings for it. We'll create an entire materials list, an entire spec sheet.
Okay.
Because I know a lot of times we're not the only contractor someone's talking to.
Sure.
And that's okay.
That's natural.
What's not okay is me giving you this really high-end price and it's $55,000, and then someone doing one of those prefab kits and saying, well, we can do it for 10.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you're very much getting apples and oranges.
Yeah. Well, and in that, it might not be apples and oranges. It's apples and bananas or some nonsense. Yeah. No, I can understand that. So, all right. So you had said material breakdown or whatever, but renderings. So that's one thing you've done this for me before, where we were actually talking about building a building before we bought this place.
Yeah.
And that was one of the services you offered that I appreciated so much, is that you did like 3D renderings, right? And so that I could visualize it.
Yep.
I am horrible, absolutely horrible at imagining something in my mind.
And that's a pretty common thing for people to say. It's hard for them to visualize what's not there.
Yeah. Well, where it made a big difference for me was windows. Thinking, oh, okay, so we don't have a window here, and so we're not going to have that sight line, or there is a window here, or what have you. Is that so? That's fairly standard.
Yeah.
Once you get to a point in the project,
on any of our more complicated projects, which are sunrooms, outdoor kitchens, stuff like that, we're going to want to do a rendering. And one, to help you visualize it,
sure,
but two, to also make sure we're visualizing the same thing.
That makes sense,
because it's really easy for us to, well, I'll give you a great example. The deck and pergola that we're doing right now has a windscreen on the side.
Okay.
So when we did that, we said we were going to use a shadow box style to make it to be the windbreak. Well, in my head, I had a vertical shadow box because I was thinking like a fence like you would build.
Okay. Yeah.
He wanted one to run horizontally. Now that's a really easy change for us to make on the fly.
Sure.
But what if we'd have built that while he was out of town?
Yeah.
Now we got to go fix it because he visualized something not wrong, just different than what I had thought.
Right.
And
that
so
makes sense.
If we can have renderings that say, here's your pickets running horizontally in design phase, or more likely I put it vertically and he's like, I really don't like that. Can we flip it?
Yeah.
Cool. Now we just eliminated double work. We eliminated a frustrated client.
Yep.
And we're going to minimize any issues or waste of material. So that's going to try and help keep the product in budget.
Yeah. It's so frustrations are huge, right? And they're totally natural.
Yep.
So one of the things, and I don't know who said it, but frustration is the result of unmet expectations.
100%.
So I like the fact that we're talking about doing a rendering, a picture of what this is, so that we can establish some expectations. You know, and that's because in my mind, when we're talking about the mini split doing the HVAC, like I've seen these things, so I think I know what they are. But in a rendering, though, I might look at it and go, oh, okay, so this thing's going to take up a decent part of the wall, or whatever it is. Or more likely, what I think probably would end up happening is, you know, the rendering from the outside looking in, going, oh, that's where the door's going to go. Can we actually make the door be, you know, on the other corner, or what have you?
Well, and so that's another reason that we do this whole design phase is so the two big things that I'm trying to make sure is, one, when we give you a final price, if we say it's going to be $23,482, that's the exact number you will pay us, and not a dollar more unless you change something. Or we run into water damage, termites, something unforeseen.
Something really crazy.
But I don't ever want to be that contractor that's like, hey, we'll do this for 10 grand. Oh, I didn't include drywall. I didn't include insulation. I didn't include this.
Yeah, we get into that on the fencing sometimes. Is there are some contractors out there that in order to get to be the lowest bid, they won't include like rock clauses.
Right.
So, they'll say, Mr. Customer, your fence is $4,200. Should really be closer to $6,800. Well, then in the back of the contract that no one reads, in the tiniest of print, is we charge $300 a hole for every hole that we hit rock or whatever. Well, and then now all of a sudden, now your fence is $8,200. You're like, how did this thing double?
Yep.
Well, that's the fine print on the back.
So it's actually where we started this design phase thing is we had a client that this was back before we specialized, and that's a whole nother conversation.
Sure.
But we used to do everything.
Yep.
And we were doing a kitchen for someone.
Okay.
Or we were talking to a lady about doing a kitchen, and she had lost her husband. And so she was really trying to navigate this by herself for the first time.
Yep.
And this guy came in and she calls me on Friday, and we've been talking for a couple weeks and working on a design. And she says, Chris, I'm going to go with another guy. And I said, I completely respect that. That's fine. She said, yeah, he's going to start on Monday. I said, well, we didn't finish a design. We don't have a plan. Like, have you guys ordered cabinets? She's like, I don't know. We're going to figure that out. Well, so 4 weeks later, she calls me and is like, Chris, can you come fix that?
Yeah.
Well, one, now we're booked even further out.
Sure.
And she's without a kitchen. Well, and then my heart just breaks for her because someone came in and was like, hey, I can do this super cheap. Oh, I didn't include anything or plan it right.
Well, yeah. And I would argue that was taking advantage of that situation.
Absolutely. 100%.
I mean, they recognized the situation for what it was and realized they could get in and get, try to make some money. I'm sure there's this way, with exteriors too, but with fencing, it is always more expensive to try to fix something than it is to do it the first time. Do it right the first time.
Absolutely.
Cry once, so twice. Everyone has these things, right? But I have to think that getting back to the site plan and all that, setting those expectations in the beginning ultimately ends up price saving money.
Absolutely.
From being in the middle of the project and saying, oof, I don't love where those windows are, or I don't love the size of the windows, or whatever. It could be a million different things. Let's talk about real quick what happens when we're in the middle of this thing. So we said $24,300, and I love it, and we're doing it. And then we get in the middle of it, and I say, hey, Chris, I know we talked about these floors, but could we do these other floors that I saw somewhere else at somebody else's place?
Yeah.
Like, can you walk me through that process? Like, what does that look like? Because I've been known to change my mind before.
Sure.
What does that look like?
Well, one, we hope we have as few of those as possible.
Of course.
That's why we do the planning. And we look at a bunch of different options and go through and find what you're really saying. And hopefully we do this whole thing and build trust that you can say, hey, this is 90% of the flooring I'm looking for, but I really want something with just a little bit more of this or that. And we can go find the right thing. That's goal number one.
Okay.
But this is also construction and new stuff's coming out all the time. Trends change. So now, like you said, we're halfway through and you want to change it. Well, there's a couple things to think about. Is one, if it was special order flooring, can I return that?
Sure.
Because we can always change it. But some things to think about is, can we get our money back for that?
Yeah. You own that flooring now.
Some of the companies that we've used, especially in the pandemic, they have a 30% restocking fee.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
they'll take it back, but yeah. Okay.
Two, what's lead time on the new flooring you want? Yeah. Some of that stuff, depending on where you are in materials, can be 6 to 20 weeks out.
Oh, wow.
We've got some windows that are 20 weeks out.
Jeez.
So we've got to talk about, hey, are you okay with this project going on hold?
Yeah. Until we can get whatever it is.
Right. And then three, just, talking about your delay in time. It's going to affect the schedule. And then for us, we have a $250 change order fee for anything that materially affects the project.
Okay.
And really that is just a way to safeguard your experience.
Okay.
So that you're not saying, man, he said he was going to get this done in 6 weeks. It took 20
Yeah.
But you're telling your friend that, and you didn't mention, hey, I changed my mind.
I changed
3
it
times.
halfway. Yeah. That makes sense. And I would imagine part of that fee probably is too that this has created extra work for you and your guys
100%.
now. So
yeah,
that makes sense. It does. All right. So we would probably talk about the price, what it does to the timeline, that sort of thing.
And on the note of price, for us, change orders are all paid 100% up front.
Okay. Interesting. Gotcha. And that makes sense because it then prevents probably more change orders.
Yeah, and it's a fine line. I don't want to prevent you from getting the exact same thing you want.
Yeah.
But we've had clients in the past that just have a hard time making a decision.
Sure.
Analysis paralysis.
Yep.
And so this helps them to really think about and make one final decision and be emotionally invested in it.
How important is this change?
Right.
That makes sense. Let's talk about the walls. I know we're jumping around here, but
no, you're fine.
Because obviously the walls are exterior walls right now.
Uh-huh.
They've got siding on them and all that.
Yep.
I would assume we could take the siding off and then just drywall it.
Yeah. And again, it doesn't have to be drywall. It can be wood. It can be, you can play with some fun stuff. Because it's going to feel
like an extra room anyway. So you could,
Yeah. And sometimes we'll do like, you see a lot in like offices or like this, where you have a kind of an accent wall and you can play with wood designs and stuff like that.
Okay.
And really, if you're going to again, it depends on, do you want this to feel like an extension or do you want this to feel like its own space?
Yeah.
So we can play with a lot of different options there.
Interesting.
But drywall's easy.
Okay. Well, and there's a window there. So I would imagine we'd probably take the window out and then make it a wall.
Depends.
Okay.
You have to think about like how much natural light are you going to lose in that other room?
Yep. Yep.
Because right now, if you're just adding windows and enclosing a porch, basically the same amount of light's going to come in.
Okay.
Now, in your particular instance, that's kind of like where the TV is and where you guys watch a lot of movies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So maybe natural light's not the biggest deal.
Not a big deal. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know though, because I mean that's the nice thing about having shades in there is that you can make it light if you want. Huh. Okay. All good things to think about.
But it shows there's a lot to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. So this, I mean, obviously this is happening live for this, but what would this look like? If I had just called and said, Chris, I'm tired of being hot in the summer on my porch. What is I assume a consultation, right? What does that look like?
Yeah. So there's 2 ways we can do it. I know a lot of clients are going to want us to come out.
Sure.
Happy to do that. We're about 3 weeks out on actually getting to your property.
Just because there's so many.
Yeah. Well, and you think about the time commitment for one. If we're going out to a property, we're going to go ahead and take measurements. We're going to go ahead and do a lot more of the stuff.
Yeah.
So I might be at your house for an hour and a half. And then I've got drive time each way. I've got paperwork on the back end to get everything ready for you.
Yep.
It just takes a lot more to block out 3 or 4 hours out of a day.
Well, and you're managing ongoing projects too, I would assume.
Yep. Or what we like to do as like a preliminary step for you is obviously we have a website that shows a lot of our work. You can go on there and request us to call and set a time, or you can call into the office and Kenzie will kind of do that for you if you prefer. And then we set up a time that's about a 30-minute phone call. Now, Kenzie's going to give you a little bit of homework. She's going to ask some basic details about your project. She's going to ask you to send us some pictures.
Makes sense.
And then I'll just jump on a Zoom call with you. A lot of time a video call. So you see my face, you know who you're talking to.
Sure.
And we talk about your project. And from there, in that 30 minutes, I can kind of give you a ballpark. Hey, this is going to be 10 to 15 grand. Hey, this is going to be 40 to 50.
That makes sense.
And we answer a lot of those questions that if you haven't watched all of our YouTube channels or we don't have all the videos posted yet.
Yeah.
How far out are we?
Yep. Yeah.
What kind of timeline does it look like to get it done? All these things that might not make us a good fit for you. We can cover that right there without me coming out and wasting your time as a client.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. I mean, in my particular instance, obviously I'm at work more than I'm anywhere else.
Right.
Yeah. So making the time commitment, if we're going to meet for an hour and a half, I'm going to assume it's 3 hours.
Right.
By the time I drive home and do the whole thing.
Sure.
So that makes sense that we could have a half hour, 45-minute conversation on Zoom
Mhm.
rather than me have to block out. I mean, essentially half a day,
Yeah.
3 hours, all that. So,
And that's not to say like I still want to come out and have that 3-hour meeting with you.
right.
I
But
just want to make sure we kind of hit the high points first, that we're
Right.
going to be a good fit.
yeah, we're getting some preliminary stuff out of the way.
Mhm.
First and foremost is going to be price.
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to be the number one decider for me.
Well, and
Is
especially in pandemic world,
sure.
we've got lumber that's 3x'd
Yeah. Yeah.
over the
yeah,
last 18 months.
absolutely.
And so if I talked to you a year ago and we said this project's 10 grand, it
Yeah.
could be 15, 20 now.
pretty easily. Sure.
Mhm.
So let's talk about that, Chris. So you and I take the pictures. I probably end up taking some measurements for you.
Mhm.
We have a Zoom call, and you say, Joe, it's going to be 15 to 23,000, whatever the range is.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to keep whittling you down. We're going to keep going down a little bit. But
Okay.
anyway, 15 to 23.
Okay.
Obviously, there's probably going to be a time frame that number is good for.
Mhm.
Is that probably a moving target? Like it used to, let me just say, so for fencing, it used to be 30 days.
Mhm.
I'd give you a bid and it's good for 30 days.
Mhm.
Right now it's about 5.
Right.
Yeah. We if it is good for this week, because I know my manufacturers are going to issue new pricing over the weekend.
Yep.
Is it like that on the building side as well?
So for ballparks, no.
Okay.
I try and account for that.
Okay.
I leave some room in. Candidly, I'm going to make the high part of your ballpark a little bit higher in case, you want to go back and talk to Taylor and make sure
Right.
this is serious.
Yeah.
And it takes a couple weeks because you guys have busy schedules and Jackson's got baseball and whatever's going on.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't want the first time you come back and say, hey, I'm really serious. Let's lock a number down. And I say, ooh,
Yeah.
that number's not good
It's
anymore.
actually going to be more. Yeah.
The other side of that is when we get done with the design, yeah, it's good till Friday.
Yeah.
Because like you said, suppliers like to change prices on the weekends.
Yep.
So we get new price sheets on Monday.
Gotcha.
Now that's usually only 2 or 3%. It's not a huge number.
Not 30%
that they change.
Yeah.
But in the instance of trying to give a price that's fair and take care of people,
Yep.
we don't want to just add in this giant buffer.
It makes sense. So we've got a comment. Let's do
Okay.
this.
What do we got?
Judy Rinkenboss says, what about hardwood floors in a sunroom? I was told they wouldn't hold up to wet ground coming in on shoes, etc. Well, that's a good question, because that's what I have.
Right.
Right. Is that, well, mine aren't hardwood though, right?
Yours
Mine
are
are like
probably laminated.
Yes.
I
That
think
sounds
so.
right. That sounds right.
My answer is hardwoods are fine, Judy, to put that in. It's no different than you walking in your front door on hardwood or something else. Now,
Okay.
if you don't wipe your feet or take your shoes off, or you're constantly going in and out traffic level,
Sure.
obviously, yes, that can wear stuff faster.
Yeah.
But as far as like it's going to make it just completely unusable in 2 or 3 years, like, no, I would say that's an exaggeration.
Okay. And she said sunroom.
Uh-huh.
So that's basically what we're talking about for my place, right?
Uh-huh.
Is it, there's all these different 3-season, 4-season sunroom.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what we're talking about.
So
right? Is it
for me, I
Yeah.
wouldn't put hardwoods in anything less than a 4-season room, like what we're talking about.
okay?
I would want something that's heated and cooled, because the
Okay.
biggest issue where I would see issues with hardwoods would be if it's in a 3-season room and you've got temperatures that are fluctuating from 30 to 90
Yeah.
and humidity contents or moisture content that's going to allow that wood to really expand and contract.
Yeah.
You're going to have issues with separation, bowing, humping,
Gotcha.
things like
Uneven
that a lot
floors.
more. But I think as long as you have a climate controlled area, you're fine to put them in.
So that would probably be a good question for Judy, is when she's talking about a sunroom, is it heated or cooled?
Absolutely. Yep.
So that's going to kind of make a difference.
Mhm.
Let's talk about, so what if I'm fairly confident we're going to do AC. I know we're going to do AC, but
Uh-huh.
if we weren't going to do AC,
Mhm.
because it sounds like then, well, okay, so my floors are laminate.
Uh-huh.
Would those be okay in a 3-season room, or
Depends
would
on the
we-
manufacturer.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of times they are. A lot of times they have a vinyl base layer, and some of
Okay.
them are actually completely waterproof. So just an example I remember is my aunt and uncle changed the flooring out in their basement, and he wanted to see exactly how waterproof it was. So
Yeah.
he took a piece of laminate and he submerged it in water for 30 days. Like after they did their yard.
For a month.
Yeah, after they did it, they said it was fine. It's all good. But he's like, let's see an extreme example. It didn't change. It didn't swell.
Really?
Nothing. Yeah.
That's surprising.
Yeah. And it's got like a 40-year warranty on it.
I mean, because you think, okay, just me as Joe homeowner, if you tell me this thing's waterproof, I'm going to think, how about water resistant? Right.
Right.
Just because, I mean, let's think about this logically. What are the chances my floor is going to be submerged for 30 days in water?
30 days is probably extreme.
Probably. Yeah.
But a lot of basements, especially if they're not waterproof correctly, do leak. And if they don't have a sump pump or a French drain or something like that installed, they can have water issues. And so you do want to make sure that it's not an issue.
That is okay. That makes sense. It's not going to swell. So kind of like what we were talking about before, swell up and buckle and not be nice and flat.
Yeah.
Interesting. Travis Fintel. We know this guy. Make sure it's a floating hardwood if wet. Unintended. Okay. Thank you, Travis.
That's awesome.
For that witty pun.
Well, so
flooring.
he's serious too.
Yeah.
You know, they have, for people who don't know, they have glue down laminate flooring.
Okay.
Or they do have floating. And so
let's talk about the difference because I'm a fence guy.
Yeah. So the glue down is exactly what you think. You put a glue down, you adhere it down, and it doesn't move.
Yeah.
The kind that's floating, you typically would have some sort of moisture barrier underneath. And then this basically just snaps together. It clicks together and it floats so that if you have a space that does get a lot of moisture content variation or has a big temperature range, it's going to expand and contract. And that's where you just need to leave enough lippage all the way around your room for it to have that room to not buckle or swell.
Gotcha. So it'll move probably imperceptibly, right? You probably won't even notice it.
Correct.
But based on temperature and humidity. Good to know. We're learning all sorts of stuff.
There's
Chris.
a lot to do.
There's a lot here. All right. So
well, and so on that note, that's one reason that I would always tell people, like, even if you're not using me, do your homework on contractors, please.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, the person that can run out there and start a project in tomorrow.
Yeah.
Always makes me nervous. I'm not saying that they didn't just have an opening come up and they're.
Well, but and maybe they're not necessary, but don't you need permits? Like when we're building fencing, a lot of times, depending on the community that we're building fence in, we've got to get a permit anyway. And that is not a same day process.
No, especially in Springfield with E-City now.
Sure. But so I would have to think that'd be a red flag anyway.
Yeah, if they're not pulling permits, then I would have some serious questions.
Well, and I would think that if they said that they could start next week, I mean, how long? I mean, maybe that's accurate, I guess, that they could pull a permit that quickly. But you would think that it would take longer than that. I know. So Chris and I have built things in the city, and so I have secondhand knowledge of how long things take. A week is not realistic.
No, so just to give you an idea of what all you have to do, even on something as small as a deck or a sunroom, is you've got to create plans.
Okay.
Now it can be hand drawn. They allow that. It doesn't have to be engineered, stamped, or anything like that. We use our computer software to give a little bit better, more detailed drawing for them.
That makes sense.
That also includes you have to create a property map.
Okay.
And give the distance and easements off of the property lines of where you're going to build.
Okay.
Then you submit all those drawings, and it has to have foundations, it has to have elevations, it has to have all the details of how you're going to build this.
Okay.
Well, then it usually goes, depending on how busy they are, but it could be anywhere from 3 to 5 days or longer. We've had permits that take, because of technology and it not delivering all the way through, take a couple weeks to get done.
Interesting. Yeah, and that's kind of what I was thinking when we were talking about someone that could start next week. Is there's got to be so much to this that next week is not possible. Like it's to do it right.
Correct.
To do it right. had a thought.
What's your thought?
Give me a minute. All right.
Okay.
So funding.
Uh-huh.
So this is going to be 15 to 23,000. 23,000. Let's call it. How, let's just say like I don't have that in my pocket at the moment.
Sure.
How common is it, especially right now? So where my mind goes is we have quite a bit of equity in our house right now.
Mm-hmm.
Is that kind of common to it makes sense to me to take equity out in the house to improve the house?
Yeah. So that's actually a really good thing for you to bring up. Hadn't even thought about talking about that. But another really big benefit from our pre-construction is you have plans, drawings, specifications, every single detail down to the doorknobs that you can take to a bank and say, hey, we're building this.
This is what we're doing.
Yeah. And that eliminates any amount of question that they could have because they know, oh, well, he's not just adding some sunroom on there. He's adding this sunroom with these materials built this way for this much.
Well, and that will probably also give them an idea for the increased value.
Uh-huh.
Right. So if we're spending 23, then the increased values, whatever, 15, 16, like what, I'm sure there's some loss there, but so that anyway, so I guess that's my question is that's fairly common with people you work with is that they go and get funding.
Yeah. And we're happy to walk through that process with you and help talk to the bank and all that fun stuff.
Okay. So if I said, so we've talked about this and we talked about money and I've been to the bank, let's talk about how long a process like this or a project like this takes.
Sure.
It's probably going to vary depending on how big and the finishes and stuff like that. But is there a ballpark timeline?
Yeah. I mean, obviously weather and fun stuff like that takes some roles there.
Sure.
But generally, you know, we're usually 8 to 10 weeks out on starting a project like that. That's kind of our sweet spot where we stay.
Yeah.
And then depending on, to give you an idea, the deck we're on day 4 of actually being on site.
Okay.
And we'll be done today. So that could be, but then when you start adding insulation and drywall and all that, you could really run up to 6 or 8 weeks.
Well, and you're probably going to have to bring in other trades too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things we'll want to do is, you know, probably make sure, well, there's outlets out there. There's electric outlets there. Well, but they'll need to be moved because just like we said, it's a step down and they're lower. So,
well, and you'll probably want to make sure that on the outside of the wall now, new walls, that you'll have outlets.
We've got outlets.
So do you have a fan right now?
No, but
so you'll probably want one.
Yeah, would want a fan.
Obviously, with HVAC, if we're putting a mini split in, the electrician's got to run stuff for that.
True. So, but that's all something you do, right? Is you coordinate the trades.
Yeah. So honestly, like you could build your sunroom yourself if you want to call each individual trade. And
I could not. Right. I will tell you right now, I could not do that.
So one of the things that you're really paying us for is that smooth communication between all the trades, because here's the thing that's really big with trades. They hate working around each other. The electrician doesn't want to be there when the HVAC guy's there, who doesn't want to be there when the plumber's there. No one wants to be there while the drywall guy is making dust.
Sure.
So those guys have to coordinate, and they all run, most of mine run a drastically shorter lead time.
Okay.
So they're bouncing around a lot more, which means they need more organization, more communication.
Yep.
That's a lot of what you pay me for, is to kind of wrangle. Yeah. And keep all those guys. Hey, I was going to be here Tuesday. Now I'm not going to be here until Wednesday. Okay. I need to call these other 3 trades that were stacked behind him and let them know we're a day behind.
Sure. That makes sense. So talking about a bunch of trades being in and around the house, how disruptive is something like that just to our day-to-day?
For yours, noise.
Okay.
Is the vast majority of it.
Makes sense.
Obviously this doesn't happen all the time, but our big goal is 100% cleaned up at the end of every day.
Okay.
So, you know, assuming that structure is safe for them to be around.
Yeah.
If the kids want to go out and look at the new room that's coming together, they can do that. And I don't have to worry about them stepping on a nail or finding a sharp surface.
That's huge.
Yeah. Especially someone like Jackson.
Yeah.
He's young and energetic.
I've got a 4-year-old that if you leave a nail somewhere, he will find it and he will poke holes in everything. Yeah. Including the drywall.
Exactly.
The brand new drywall that just got put up.
We want to see what that looks like,
Dad. It full of holes. Yeah. I know this kid. So, but that was, yeah. So that answered my question is that because, I mean, like I said, my wife stays home with the kids.
Mhm.
My 4-year-old is eternally curious and wants to be in the middle of everything. So that is a thought, is how disruptive is it to the day to day?
Now we might be disruptive as far as most of my guys love kids.
Sure.
And so like bringing him out to let him help vacuum or talking to him about what we're doing, like absolutely we'll probably do that.
That makes sense.
But no, really it's just noise. And then there'll be a couple things like when the electrician ties into the rest of the house for electrical or if the plumber has to do something like that, you know, we'll have a little bit of in and out.
Yeah.
But we'll always schedule that with you. Make sure you as the homeowner are happy with that. And it, you know, we're not coming in the middle of nap time or.
Yeah. So that's probably a good point too, is how much communication is there like during it?
So that's something we really, really, really strive to be the best at. You know, you and I have talked about this where we don't want to be a construction company. We want to be a customer service company.
Yep. Absolutely.
The number one component to customer service is communication.
Absolutely.
And so it's a balance for me.
Sure.
We want to be in communication every day. But at the same time, I do have a family at home, got 3 kids.
Yeah.
And so what I typically say is my phone is always available to you. You can call it or text it at any time.
Okay.
I'm also upfront that at 6 o'clock, I turn it off at night.
Which is fair.
Yeah. I've got, well, he'll be 11 tomorrow, you know, a 6-year-old and a 15-month-old. So they take a little bit of attention. And I want to be, it's important to me to be there for them.
Right. It's not that they take attention. It's that you want to be present.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I don't miss sporting events for the most part.
Yeah. We've talked about this a lot off air, is that's one of the things I admire about you, is that you're able to turn it off. Right. So that you can be present for the kids.
So it's actually funny. I'm not, if that phone is on, I can't see that you've sent me a message about it. So when I say I turn it off, I literally turn it off and put it on my entry table.
Yeah.
Because like my heart's in it. I want to answer that question at 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I've just had to have the discipline to say, no, this phone's over here. You know, and I realize that's confusing for my personal life too. Because how many times have you called the wrong phone or text the wrong phone and it's turned off?
I literally have Chris Tree's work, Chris Tree's personal. And before I text you, I got to think, all right, what time is it? Okay, this phone is off. I need to text this phone.
Yeah. And I know
which is fine. I applaud that, Chris. I really do.
Thank you.
Just because like to be that intentional with it it's easy not to be. It is very easy not to be.
It's also very easy for my loving wife to remind me that I'm not being intentional.
That's fair. That's fair. All right, let's catch up on some comments here.
Okay.
Travis Fintel goes on to say, we hope to replace the deck next year. My second level deck posts are in ground. Is it better to replace them completely or rebuild up part of the deck and use the existing posts?
So that'll depend on what the city says and where you live, Travis. Springfield has adopted new codes that say posts cannot be in the ground. So they want a concrete pad and then they want a post base that the post will actually sit in. And so what it does is it actually raises the post about this far off the ground. Gotcha. And the reason for that is, you know, you've seen eventually dirt and mud and water will corrode and eat at that post.
Yeah. And
so it drastically shortens the lifespan of it. So this keeps it up off the ground. Water can run under it without ever actually touching it. Yeah,
it's a rot gap.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what it is it's keeping that wood above that aerobic zone. In fencing, we talk about rot a lot. It's kind of our thing. Interesting. So you cannot. So if you're replacing, even if you're just replacing a deck, you have to bring it up to current code.
Correct.
I mean, it makes sense, right? Well, now I'm sure there's a bunch of additional costs, so that's painful.
It is, but are there contractors that'll try and get away with it and try and reuse some of the existing structure? Yeah. But for me, let me ask you a question. If we keep some of that frame and we just put a new deck on it, and then that old one breaks, fails, has some sort of issue.
Yeah.
Are you calling that first contractor or are you calling me?
Yep. You're the last one to touch it. Well, and then I have to think So we deal with something similar with fencing in that inside the city of Springfield specifically, they're very particular on the height of fence.
Mhm.
So without getting into details, 6 foot is pretty much going to be your standard.
Yep.
Now, can you get architectural stamp drawings and inspect it as a structure? Sure. But no one does.
Right.
Because it's expensive. It adds to the length of the project, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
Now, are there 8-foot fences that get built inside the city of Springfield?
Yeah.
Yes, there are. So I would have to think that's probably the same thing. But what makes me nervous,
Mhm.
so we do work for the city and we have to pull permits from the city.
Uh-huh.
So I have to think that if we were to try to chance it
Mhm.
and skirt the rules and get caught,
Mhm.
I would have to think that would make our life a bit difficult moving forward as well.
Yeah, I would think so. And you know, that's one of the things that clients are always looking for a way to reduce the cost. And I get it. Projects are expensive.
Absolutely.
Completely understand. But you also said something earlier that I would wrap back around to, and that doing it right the first time is usually the cheapest way.
Yep.
Because if we have to do it a second time to get into code,
Yeah.
or you don't pull that permit and then you get the whole thing done and now they found out that you have a sunroom and didn't pull a permit, one, you're pulling all your drywall down 100% because they want to look at the framing.
Gotcha.
Oh, now you have electrical and plumbing in there and no permits? Boys, we're going to take a while.
Yeah. 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 You're going to have to open it up. It's going to take a while, which read that as being expensive.
And read that as being them being incredibly meticulous.
Yeah. Oh, I bet. Yeah. I bet everything gets gone through with a fine tooth comb as well.
Yeah. I mean, once you start working with these inspectors, you build that relationship.
Sure.
And guys know, like we had a deck inspection today and he walked out and he's like, yep, this looks great. And he had an assistant with him, a new person working, that was training. And he's like, and he took a little bit more time, but to point out, like, we like that they changed their screw pattern this way. We like that they do this and this. But normally he'd come out and go, yep, these guys still know how to do it.
Yeah.
Because we've had those first 5, 6, 10 where they really do dig through.
Right. Well, and they're comfortable with you and your work.
Exactly.
They know your standards, they know your quality and all that. So, yeah. So Travis, I guess to answer your question, it's going to depend.
Yeah. I mean, I would say if we're helping you out with it, Travis, we'll replace it.
Makes sense. All right. Now listen, I'm not telling lies about Jackson. I didn't say he wasn't an angel. I said he is eternally curious as to what would happen if he did this thing.
So you said he's super smart because curiosity is a sign of intelligence.
That's true. He is too smart sometimes for his own good. He is just this kid. And I love watching how his brain works because he can work through some problems pretty quickly. And so Jackson, and I think he gets this from his mom, he is the king of finding loopholes. That's it.
I would like to say that is not just from his mom.
He is always working at an angle of some kind. You know, how can he get out of whatever? How can he get toys in the bathtub? That's the thing we have going on right now because he likes to take his toy box and just take the whole thing into the bathroom. Like, well, now I don't mind you putting like your sharks in there and all this, but
they're putting his regular books in there.
No. Yeah, he would probably try to read a book if we hadn't laid down that rule very early on. But it's always something with him, right? But I'm not telling lies though. This is this kid. Like he will try to do stuff. And Courtney, you tell me, if this kid found a nail, that he wouldn't want to see what it's like to poke everything with it. I know my son. That is not a lie. That is absolutely the truth. And then Taylor wants to set up, guys, we're doing a Facebook, YouTube. Come on.
They're taking it over.
Text each other. You have each other's numbers. I know for a fact.
Oh.
Okay. Make sure to give Courtney.
We already did it. Hey, you should be proud of us.
Done.
We did it.
Already done.
It's already in the truck.
First thing, when Chris walked in the door, I said, stop. I got these things for you.
Yep.
So Done and done.
Now you need to tell us how proud you are of us.
Right. This is great content for everyone else out there watching. That's all I'm saying. But man, I think we covered. So in talking about sunrooms, I think we've covered a lot of my questions as far as, what the project looks like. Cost is always up in the air. It's always going to depend. But, it sounds like we've covered a lot of the process. So.
Yeah.
What am I forgetting? Like, I'm sure, I don't know what I don't know, sort of thing.
Yeah. I think you really, honestly, for someone who doesn't do it every day, thought about a lot. Yeah. I mean, there's little things that we'll go through, style of insulation, whether we do spray foam or we do safe and sound, or we do just fiberglass. Well,
let's talk about those, because I'm familiar with spray foam. And I've always and this is probably old information, but I'd always heard that spray foam was probably the most energy efficient. But then what was the other one? You said safe foam?
Safe and sound. Okay. Yeah. So it's a product from Roxol, which is, they basically take like a mineral wool kind of. They actually make it from rocks.
Okay.
The big benefit there is it's hydrophobic, which means it doesn't, with fiberglass, when it gets wet, it just drops to the bottom of the wall.
Yep.
All your insulation's gone.
You got to throw it away.
Yeah. So this stuff doesn't do that. So if, let's say you had a leak, it would actually show on the inside. So you'd see it on the drywall.
Okay.
Now that might sound bad, but I would much rather know about a leak this big.
Yeah, no, that is
than it sat there for 10 years. And then we find out that half the wall is rotten.
Just rotted. Yeah.
And it's just had time to get worse and worse and worse.
That makes sense.
The other nice part that I really like about Rockwool, or Roxol is the brand now, they changed it, is there's not a minimum. So a lot of times with sunrooms, spray foams are a big setup. They typically are their own truck. They have a machine that mixes stuff on site. And so you really have a minimum cost, whether you're doing closing in one wall, or you're doing a whole sunroom. Oftentimes will only be a couple $100 difference.
Interesting.
Whereas we could do just one wall, and then you just have the actual cost of us doing it. You don't have this specialized crew that has a minimum to show up that can be expensive.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, also the rest of my house isn't spray foamed either.
Right.
So spray foaming might be excessive to do it on this one sunroom, knowing that the rest of the house isn't going to be at that level anyway.
Right.
Interesting. All right. So insulation.
And then fiberglass, we just try not to use as much as possible.
Yeah. So we'd probably want to insulate the ceiling as well. Right. Because I have a feeling, I know for a fact there's no insulation up there. So we want to insulate that as well. And I don't know. It's one of those things. I'm sure I'll think of something after we're done.
Sure.
What haven't we talked about for sunrooms? No, I just asked that, but
a lot of it at that point is just style that really dictates the cost and all of those things.
Sure.
Again, back to windows, are you going to do windows throughout as many windows as you can to maximize glass?
Yeah.
We've got some really cool new products that we work with Pella that has, like, if you want a space that can really make it feel open and part of the rest of the house, where we can do like a 4-panel sliding door and the 2 center panels open.
I saw one of your pictures of those.
Yeah. And then you don't have just a 3-foot opening for you to walk through. You could have a 6-foot opening, or they have offerings where, like, the doors fold up and then go flat against a wall. And so you could have the whole 8 or 10 foot be open.
Like accordion.
Yeah. So a lot of times we'll do those where, so we would do that, like, take out your window in your living room.
Yeah.
And just make a big door there. And so you can make that sunroom feel like part of the rest of your house.
Extension.
And so it's really nice when you're having 10, 15 people over.
Yeah.
Some of our family dinners that we have, there's 15 or 20 people there pretty easily.
Yep.
And a lot of times there's 3 main areas, they're in that living room, or they're in the kitchen, or we're out on the back porch.
Yep.
Where this could be one big area.
You just open it up and it feels like one big area.
Yep.
Man, that's interesting. So, just bouncing around.
Sure.
Talking about price. So we talk about price. We get it locked in.
Mm-hmm.
But then you said you guys are like 8 or 10 weeks out. At what point does the price get locked in?
The day you sign the contract. Because so what we do there is obviously you run a company, so you understand right of rescission.
Yep.
In Missouri, and I think it's federally too, you have 72 hours to ask for that back. So August 1st, you signed a contract and wrote me a check.
Yeah.
We wait 3 days. August 4th, we put that check in the bank, and then we order everything as soon as it clears. That
Gotcha.
way.
That makes sense.
And it's really important for clients to think about that now too, because as materials were really increasing over the last 18 months, people would never allow us to go back and charge more because lumber's gone up. Well, you should have thought about that. That was what clients would often say.
Sure.
Well, it's the same way. To combat that, we just have a standard operating procedure that we order as soon as we can. So if lumber's cheaper in 8 weeks, well, we've already paid for our lumber.
It's already bought.
Yeah, your price is your price.
Yeah.
In an effort to really be transparent there,
sure,
we're going to order stuff as soon as we can.
Yeah, that makes sense. So we lock it in 72 hours after we sign the contract.
Mm-hmm.
And then from what we're talking about before, at that point, the price is set.
Yep.
Unless I change my mind.
Unless you change your mind.
Yeah. Right. So,
and that's one of the big things that's really important to me is, again, we've talked about contractors will always, oh, well, I didn't add this. I didn't account for that.
Yep.
Now you owe me more money. I don't want that. I feel like that is not honest.
Sure.
And I really want to say, unless it's me coming and saying, hey, I messed up.
Right.
I didn't account for this. What do you think is fair that we should do?
Sure.
But I really want you to have the entire picture of what investment you're making when you sign that contract so that you are completely comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And oftentimes something we haven't talked about that I will talk to you about is, one, what's your budget? But 2, what's your pain point?
Okay.
And so, especially on older homes, if we're adding a sunroom or something, and we know we're going to get into stuff that we can't always see.
Yeah.
So if we decide you're going to do a $50,000 sunroom at 57, does that start to affect your lifestyle or start to make you unhappy with this investment?
Yeah.
Because what if we run into a whole bunch of termite damage that we can't see?
Yep.
Stuff like that. We don't want to be there.
Right.
But I also would much rather have you say, no, we need to plan on 45 because 50 is our pain number.
Yeah. Yeah.
That way, if we don't hit that, great, cool. You've got $5,000 to furnish it or whatever you want to do.
Yep.
But if we do hit that, we run into something, I haven't just ruined.
You're still in good shape.
Yeah.
Yeah. You didn't blow right past 50, get to 57. And then now all of a sudden it's a big issue.
Right.
Nice.
Other than that,
sense.
I think that's it.
Corey's got a question.
Okay.
How would you incorporate his outdoor kitchen idea into the sunroom to make it cohesive?
That is a really good question. I need a couple seconds to think. I have to envision. I don't have someone drawing this all out for me.
Well, that's the thing is, so that's kind of what I was trying to picture when we were talking about, bumping out the new concrete because we're going to want some sort of pad there. So you got to think about heat, right? Because we've got siding and we've got stuff like that.
So I think I've got an answer for you.
Okay.
Now, for the rest of you who haven't been to Joe's house, you have to bear with me. But
Sure.
I think what we would do is we would take your covered patio and we'd make that a sunroom.
Yep.
In my mind, we would raise it up to be the same level as the rest of the house.
Yeah, I agree.
And then I think we would probably have just as far right walking into your backyard. We would put the door there.
Okay.
Come down onto a concrete patio. And I would probably start just to the left of the stairs, all of your prep side of your kitchen.
Yeah.
So any sink you want, mini fridge could go there. Anything like you said, to your point, you're not going to create heat.
Yeah.
So that we're not worried about melting your siding.
Exactly.
Anything like that.
Yep.
And then when we got out to that corner post furthest away from the door, we would turn and run away from the house. And that's where any heat creating elements
the grills
would go.
I like it.
The nice part about that too is it's not cutting off any traffic area for the kids to get to the trampoline
Exactly.
or anything like that.
Yeah, that's exactly where my mind went. Is once this is done, does the backyard still flow? You know, we just have a trampoline. It's not like we got a lot going on back there, but it's still there.
Right.
So does it flow? I also like that too, because it keeps everything together. When we're talking about my lawnmower, you know, is it creating extra work for him? I really don't think so. I like it. And the kitchen's right there. So if we wanted to bring water out, we could. Yeah, I mean, that works really well.
Yeah, I think it would flow really nice.
I like it. I like it. I like it.
Good question, Court.
Yeah, very good question. Very good question. Well, Chris, we've been at this for an hour and a half.
That went fast.
You told me 20 minutes. No,
well,
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No,
it's it's funny. You can tell when someone's done this for a while, like you have, and that we've known each other for so long.
Yeah.
Like Kenzie and I have stuff to talk about.
Sure.
But we're just not used to doing this for so long on camera.
Yeah.
So you can definitely tell. And it's been a huge help that you and you're a consumer. Like,
yeah,
we do this every day. So we don't know everything that you would want to ask.
Sure. These are my favorite interviews when it's something that I'm generally curious about.
Right.
Because I've got all the questions and I'm lining them up for you. And like I said, I was legitimately this morning when I saw the subject, I was like, I'm coming up here to sit because I've got some questions.
Yeah.
But it just happened that I got to ask my questions live on air. So that works out.
Maybe we'll find some other clients that want to come on and talk about a project they want.
I think that's a great idea. I
think
really
that'd
do.
be really cool.
I think it creates good content. You know, because these are legitimate questions. You know, this is a project that I'm thinking about. And so, you know, to your point earlier, if I've got these questions, there's a pretty good chance somebody else out there has these questions as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you need to find someone that has a window project and you need to, yeah. So let's do this. If you guys are watching and you've got questions, how can they email them to you?
So Chris at Classic Home Concepts.
Okay.
Or you can obviously go to the website if you want to talk about a more in-depth conversation than just a couple questions.
Sure.
If you go to the website and you wanted to be on the podcast, just put that in the notes. I'd love to have. I think that'd be a really cool thing to talk about people.
I agree. You know, just thinking about this, and I should do this with mine as well. Like a monthly, like once a month, bring someone in just to ask the questions.
Yeah.
You know, if you're interested in windows, if you're interested in siding, if you're whatever the project is, I think that'd be incredibly interesting. I really do. Because I think what you'll find is they'll ask questions differently than you would have explained them.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, again, we talk about things that we take for granted.
Sure.
You know, I'm going to ask questions about a fence that you're like, I've known since I was in 6th grade.
Yeah. Right. You've got questions that I just take for granted.
Right.
It's just this way. And this is how we do it. And this is why we do it. Yeah. So I think that's such a great idea. I really do. At minimum, if you guys are watching and you have questions, so email, website,
comment down below.
I was going to say, I bet if they left a comment, you'd be able to find it.
Absolutely.
So you guys can really help be a part of this and shape the discussion and make sure your questions get answered by leaving them in the comments below.
Yep. Obviously, if you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe.
Absolutely.
You know, even stuff like that, I always feel so cheesy at the idea of it.
No.
But man, especially right now at the beginning, that's when you're helping the most.
So
when you subscribe and you like and you comment, like that helps us.
Absolutely.
And that, not just from a reach standpoint, like that makes me feel like it's worth it.
Yeah, right.
See, people are asking.
It's positive feedback.
Yeah,
it really is. So, and I'll say this, it's important no matter what the age of the channel that you continue to ask for, hey, if you find this content helpful, educational, heck, even a little entertaining, it'd mean the world if you gave it a like.
Absolutely.
Because you're right. It sends signals to Facebook and YouTube and all that, but it's great to see it on the back end too.
Yeah.
To know that the conversation you're having, someone else out there found it worthwhile, right? Found it helpful or educational, heck, even a little entertaining. I say that a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, also subscribing is huge. Right. So if you guys are watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. If the button's red, you need to hit it.
Okay.
That means they're not subscribed yet.
Okay.
And when you do subscribe, be sure to hit that notification bell, because that lets YouTube know that you're interested in knowing when Chris has more content.
Yeah, we're going to do this every Wednesday at 11:30. I'm really excited. We're going to bring on some other guests.
Absolutely.
Talk about a bunch of different stuff, and see where this goes.
That's right. I mean, it only goes up.
Yeah.
It only, that's the thing. The more you do this, the more you'll enjoy it. I enjoy this immensely. Like, we could sit here for another hour and just horse around, because I legitimately enjoy this. I think it's great that you're documenting answers, so that, in the future you can clip this into different answers, that sort of thing.
Yep.
What I think is cool, and Gary Vaynerchuk talks about this, Gary V talks about this, is imagine 5 generations from now, when, those kids are like, what was Chris about? Now we've got an interview where we talked about sunrooms.
Yep.
Right. Like, how cool is that? I think that's awesome.
Yeah. That's probably one of the things that I really feel like drives me to do it, is it creates not a legacy, but just kind of a documentary of, we both know Tom, and Tom talks a lot about how rough his videos were at the beginning.
Yep.
And just to see that growth of, this is how awkward we looked on episode 1 talking for the first time, to episode 4 being really comfortable. Well, what's episode 100 look like?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I would make one point when we're talking about being uncomfortable, and we're talking about and ahs, and I firmly believe that leads to authenticity. I think people get so wrapped up in making sure everything is pronunciated correctly, all the words are super clear. I think they get too wrapped up in that.
Absolutely.
Because unless that's how you talk in real life. If that's authentic to you, by all means, please do that. But I have to guess that that's probably not authentic, right?
I would tend to agree with that. Yeah.
And we were talking in the beginning that you want someone, when they meet you in real life, to think, this is the exact same person that I've been watching the last 6 months on video. And if you're prim and polished, and you sit up straight and you say all your words correctly, that's probably not real, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's just one thing I notice, that when people are doing video, I think that's one of the mistakes they make, is they try to be too polished. Right? They try to be too exact. They try to be real. Yeah. Be authentic to yourself, and you will never regret it ever.
Yeah, I think authenticity is, especially in today's world, even not on social media, just be who you are, and not worried about what everyone else thinks. Like, if there's one lesson I can teach my kids, it's be who you are. Yeah. And let the rest of the world figure it out. There's enough people, you'll find your tribe.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's absolutely correct. I mean, we've had this conversation a lot, and it's funny that as you go through life, your tribe looks different.
Right? Yeah, for sure.
Because everyone's in different places in their lives at different times.
Right.
And for better, for worse, whatever. I think that's right. If you're authentic with yourself, if you're authentic with the people around you, your tribe figures itself out.
Yeah. Well, and even when that tribe is the same, the makeup of how that tribe reacts is different.
Yeah.
Right. You and I aren't going to Chinese 4 nights a week anymore, like when we were single and young.
That's true. That's true. Our lives look a little different now.
Absolutely.
But yeah, no, I think the point is, be authentic.
Yep.
And, be authentic, answer the questions in the way that you would answer them in person. And then let the rest shake itself out.
I like it. I think we got one more comment before
we have another comment. All right. Nope.
Oh, okay.
No, but it's the
that was
kitchen.
The incorporate one.
It's incorporate the kitchen.
I didn't see it down there. Okay. So, well, I think that's it then.
Yep.
Guys, thanks a lot.
I appreciate you having me on.
Thanks for coming. It was far and away our longest one, and I felt like it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So try doing these for 2.5 hours. That's where we're at right now on the YouTube.
Give me 5 years. We'll work up to it.
I appreciate you having me on. So I'm kind of getting over, not kind of getting over. I am getting over COVID. And this is actually my first time on video, and I was nervous on how it would go, but I think it's gone pretty well.
You've had plenty of energy.
It's because I had a 5-hour energy this morning.
That's good.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you again, Joe. And guys, ask any questions you have. We'll see you next week.
See you guys later.